Hi everyone, it's me Pehel. In today's Kahania Calling video, we'll once again be hearing a very interesting story called The Last Leaf, written by O. Henry. It's about how hope can change one's life. Let's hear the very interesting story from Dad.
The Last Leaf story is from California, Artsville. Artsville was a place which was buzzing with all form of arts. All form of artists, that is dancers, singers, pianists, painters, you would find all artists there. And everybody flocked to that place because the place was really lively. Interestingly, the people of California also appreciated all these art forms. But unfortunately, they were not really willing to pay for the paintings that they saw, although the paintings were really nice and lively. So as a result, what happened? There was an exodus of all these painters from that place, and very few remained there. Among the remaining were two friends, Sue and John C. They were very passionate about their paintings. Sue was one who was very jolly, very lively, and very optimistic, while John C. was always a little worried about the future and sometimes a little bit negative also. They stayed in a building on the second floor. In the same building, there was another painter called Mr. Barman. He was an old guy who had really never made a very great painting, although he had immense faith in himself that one day he will create a masterpiece. But just that, if you have not really done any fantastic job for 30 years of your life, it is unlikely that people will believe you. So these two ladies stayed there, and as time passed by, once there was a spread of yellow fever. John C. got impacted by that, and Sue tried to ensure that she gets better. She called upon the doctors. She tried different medications, alternate medications, and even different doctors. But nothing worked. What doctor said was, medications or any treatment will work only when her mindset changes. She is a little too pessimistic, and that's why nothing is working. They said, you first focus on that. Now, Johnson's condition had become such that she became extremely weak and she was completely bedridden. And all that she could see from her bed was the window of her room, and from that window she could see an ivy tree and maybe the next building. And the ivy tree was the only thing that she really liked. But then she soon noticed that the ivy tree's leaves have started to shed, and very few leaves remained. And somewhere she got this in her mind that as the ivy tree loses all its leaves, this will be the end of her life as well. So basically her thought was, the day the last leaf goes away, it will be time for her also to say goodbye. And somewhere she held on to this belief very strongly. And as the winter approached and it became colder, the leaves started to shred. And one day there were only 10 leaves left. Then another leaf would shed, and she would keep a count on that. Oh, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and so on. Sue would try very hard to convince her that her life has got no direct relation to the ivy tree. But she just refused to understand. Sue also tried, to boost up her morale so that she started thinking positively. She would read out stories to her. She would tell her some practical jokes, and she would also call about some of the events from her childhood which she really loved. But nothing moved Sue. Even Mr. Barman used to come and visit John C. sometimes to check how she was doing and tried to cheer her up, but again, of no avail. So, from these 5 leaves also, now there were 4, 3, 2. So the leaves were constantly shredding and there was only one last leaf left. Now, which also had turned a little yellowish. And John C. had this in mind. Now, tomorrow this leaf will also be gone, maybe tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or maybe in a couple of days, and that will be the end of my life. And that day, there was a snowstorm there, there were winds blowing quite strong, and there were incessant rains as well. Her worry knew no limits. To calm her down, Sue told her, "You don't worry about this." She covered the window with the curtains and told her to rest. It was a stormy night, it was a disturbing night. You don't bother, it will be all fine tomorrow. John C. somehow agreed and decided to go to bed. Now, the next morning, when she had got up, the first thing she wanted to see was the ivy tree. So she insisted that Sue opens the curtains and let her see through. And when this happened, John C.'s joy knew no limits when she saw the last leaf was still there. Although slightly yellow from the sides, but it is still hanging on there. She was just amazed that so much of rain, hailstorm, winds, but this leaf could, withstand all of those. I mean, as if there was a spurt of energy in her, and she started believing, oh my God, this tiny leaf can be so mighty. How can I give up? And the lady who had, stopped taking medicines and stopped eating her food properly, asked her friend Sue that can you please give me my medicines and my food? I really want to get better now. And in a day or two only, there were visible changes in her. She would constantly look at the window. Oh, the last leaf is still there. I am so amazed. Then she asked Sue, okay, can you also give me a canvas? I want to start painting. I want to get back to normal. She could barely sit, but she would paint. And because of this positive change, this change in mindset, she just got better in a couple of days. And she wanted to go to the window and check out the tree. And when she went to the window, as if she got the shock of her life, she felt the ground missing on her feet, under her feet. She noticed that it was a painting that was there. That was an exact replica of what she could see from her window pane. That means she could see that ivy tree and the other building, other houses, that's all. And when she removed that painting, she saw that ivy tree was completely barren. That means all its leaves had shredded. She looked up to Sue and said, what was that? Sue had tears in her eyes and told that day when she was giving up all hope and the last leaf was about to fall, Mr. Barman had come to visit them. Mr. Barman was really not well, as he had got completely drenched outside. And when he got to know that, as the last leaf goes by, you will lose all hope, he painted this. He made this masterpiece, which is just a replica of exactly what you used to see and where your hope was stuck with. So that day when you slept by, both Mr. Barman and I had put that painting so that the next morning when you get up, you see the ivy tree leaf, the last leaf still there. Oh my God, and John C. had tears in her eyes. She couldn't believe that what was it. And then she was immediately very curious to meet Mr. Barman. But Sue had tears in her eyes rolling through. She was just weeping. Johnsy was worried as too. Now I am all well. Why can't I meet Mr. Barman? Sue mentioned that because he had grown old and he was completely drenched, he was not even well that day. Somehow he just managed to make the painting. And after that, the next day, Mr. Barman had passed away. In his whole life, he was always focusing on making a masterpiece. This was the masterpiece that he could make and save your life. Johnsy was just speechless, and she understood what his contribution was and how this hope that he had created just worked magic for her.
We learn from this story that hope can really act as magic. It is rightly said that without food, water, or even oxygen, we can live for a few moments. But without hope, there is absolutely nothing. Hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to click on the bell icon post subscribing. We'll be waiting for your comments.